welcome to I've Seen Things. I'm Taja.
I'm Amy.
And we're here to talk about logistics.
Oh, and safety!
I thought you might like bringing that
back. On today's episode, we will be talking more in your specific area.
Transport, logistics, safety.
Yes. So I'm keen to hear stories.
I'm keen to see your reaction.
Yes.
I do love
Me
scaring
too.
you just a little bit. Look, I've been in transport since I was a teenager, so I've got a few doozies out there. They're probably not as terrifying as some of the older stories that you can no doubt hear.
Yep.
But yeah, there's definitely been a few terrifying in their own way moments that I've had.
Okay.
But then there's still a few that you sort of you see almost like a dying art, like the open top trailers with the tarping. The tarping these days seems to be a little bit of a dying art.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nice. They look just, to me, from a industry standpoint, when you see a really nicely tied down tarped trailer, it's like an art form. It's glorious to witness.
Very aesthetically pleasing.
Very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah.
But then sometimes you see them and they're a little shoddy and you're like, no, that's not how that's
Go
done.
away and do it again.
Yep, do it again. But yeah, no, I'm genuinely interested in hearing your response to a few of these. I think that there's a couple of stories I've got that you might even be cranky at the safety officers involved.
Oh, interesting. Colour me intrigued.
So, working in, I've been in a few different transport companies over the years. I've dealt with regional transport, logistics. I've dealt with mine site transport. I've dealt with sort of international. I've dealt with a lot of specialized, the heavy haulers and things like that. General freight, floor coverings. That's all, dealing with the different attachments on the forklifts where we have, if you're moving a roller carpet, you are not using tines, you are using spears. So having all of that coming at you and everything that comes along with all of that sort of stuff. Transport is an industry that is varied, very varied.
Very good.
So I've had a little bit of an overview. I've even done a little bit of refrigerated transport. So
yeah,
and I'm not saying this from a side point of I'm not a driver, but I've certainly had a lot of time with drivers. My brother is a driver, and my dad has jumped into trucks every now and again when that's been needed. And yeah, I've had a lot of friends that are drivers and things, and every section of the industry has its own scary points and its highlights and lowlights. So I think the best ones that I've ever heard are the ones that deal with regional Queensland, though. Regional anywhere, really. They're the best stories.
Yes.
So I do love how up in arms some of the smaller communities can be over what we would consider the tiniest of details. I've rung through to depots and said, hey, can you get this delivered today? And they've gone, that's an hour away. I'm like, yes. So that's my commute to work. What's the problem? I'm like, but no, it's an hour away. It's missed the run today. And I'm like, can it go on the ute? It's like a skid. It'll fit in the ute. It's only 70 kilos. It's fine to go in the back of the ute. No, it'll have to go tomorrow. It's an hour away. Wait, just please stop repeating that it's an hour away. I understand that it's an hour away, but that's literally my commute. I do it twice a day.
It's like you don't understand.
I don't.
On many levels, you don't understand.
I really don't. I mean, there's some properties out there where an hour is the driveway. What's the problem?
It's an hour away.
It's some of the properties out there, an hour is barely getting off the front step of the house.
Yeah.
So no, apparently that's a problem. But
okay,
we've had a few. I've had drivers that have had to be escorted through towns because there's issues with local people behaving poorly with the highways. But my absolute favorite, and the one that I think even you'll be like, what is the safety officer thinking, is to do with the mine sites.
Okay, lay it on me.
We had a rig that we had to particularly deliver to outside of a country town, Western Queensland. Good hour and a half or so drive down the motorway and then down the highway. And then from there you have to follow the farmer's map, because a lot of these rigs are on farmland and they have access agreements with the farmers, which means that you have to follow the farmer's map as to where your vehicle is allowed to drive, so that you are not interrupting his growing or his livestock or any of his pastures, his equipment or fence lines, anything like that. So he dictates where you're allowed to drive. You have to follow that map. So from the road to the rig site where the driver was dropping off his load, which was piping and drill rods, so nice round pieces. Was another about an hour or so trip, right?
So long. So far.
But he's gotten to the site and he's been met with the unloader and a safety officer, and I believe that there was another person there as well. And the driver was advised that he could not exit his vehicle or unstrap his load without 4 points of contact. The industry standard is 3 points of contact. As a safety officer, why do we have 3 points of contact? Because you have 4 limbs. 4 points of contact is not feasible. We are not geckos or frogs. we are not snakes. We don't have a tail that can wrap around things like a monkey. It's just not feasible.
Wow, 4 points.
So he wasn't even allowed out of the truck for starters, because he had to have 4 points of contact with the truck to get in or out.
Yeah.
When he argued that point, he said, well, how are you going to... She wouldn't let anyone on their side. He said, that's fine. You can unstrap the load and remove it and put the straps in the toolbox. No, we can't do that. That's your responsibility. He's like, well, if I can't get out of the truck and you can't unstrap the load, how do you suggest we proceed with this problem?
We've come to an impasse.
Oh, no. She had a suggestion.
Oh.
She told him to go back to the road, unstrap the load, and return to the unloading point. Would you like me to list the ways that is a horrible idea?
Please, just for our listeners, in case they don't understand.
Any form of unstrapped or unrestrained load, especially circular objects like pipes or drill rods, is just imminent death. Because these drill rods themselves can weigh, ballpark, a few hundred kilos to a couple of ton, depending on the size.
Yep.
And the pipes are generally within the same vicinity. A few hundred kilos to a couple of tons, depending on the size. In this case, he was carrying a few 6 and 12 meter lengths. So he was definitely in the ballpark of a few hundred kilos to a ton for each piece.
Yep.
And they were all circular, meaning that there was nothing to interconnect them. So as soon as he unrestrained that load and they started the movement down the road, it starts jostling with the vibration of the trailer. Everything falls apart and starts running all over, not just the farmers' fields, but the highway, the truck, the people trying to get out of its way. So there's a multitude of problems with this scenario that this safety officer has suggested. My driver turned around and went, I don't think I'll do that. I believe that would be illegal and I could lose my job and I would like to feed my family next week. So I'm just going to go ahead and return to the depot. If I'm not allowed out of the truck, you're not allowed to unstrap the load, and I'm not allowed to come anywhere near it while it's on the property. You'll need to come and collect it yourself. So he did. He turned the truck around and came back to the depot.
Yeah.
We did have further contact with the rig manager, who was a little bit upset that we had refused to deliver the load.
Yeah.
Because the story given by the safety officer was not what had happened on site. And that particular safety officer, I believe, had some issues later on as well, because it was not the first time that we had a run-in with her. It wasn't the last time we had a run-in. But we started carrying cameras in cabs that stopped. We allowed them to continue running after the truck stopped. So he was able to keep that going. So at least we had a little bit of audio. There was a sign put on the side of the door.
Yeah.
And yeah, we eventually asked the rig manager to be on site whilst we delivered, because she was adamant, 4 points of contact. I I have this image of the driver trying to get out of the truck like a lizard man. It's like what's that the one in X-Men, Toad?
Oh yeah.
It's just like I've got that image in my head now and I can't get rid of it.
But how are you meant? You can't. It's not possible.
You can't, because you have to have one to move at all times. I understand he's a male, but that particular extra appendage does not hold on to things.
I can't. Oh God. Oh no.
And if anyone's wondering, this is how our lunch breaks used to look.
Yeah. Oh. Well, that deserves a round of applause. You broke me.
That's, now that Amy's recomposed herself.
Yes. Oh, good God. Back to what we're saying.
What I would honestly be interested in what you would do differently, aside from, logically concluding that he can't have 4 points of contact getting out of the truck. That's physically impossible.
Mm.
But you don't use harnesses to get in and out of trucks. Maybe that was what she was thinking of.
Like swing out.
But then he'd have only 1 point of contact.
You just hang.
Just a chairlift.
Now I'm just imagining for older people downstairs, the little seat that goes really, really slowly.
Just in the truck.
Yeah, and so
just
it comes out
and then just really, really painfully slowly.
That's it.
And in the meantime, the forkie's sitting on the forklift going, are you ever going to reach the ground? I'm not allowed to stand up until my feet are on the ground, man.
That's 2 points of contact.
I to this day, like, this was years ago, well and truly over 10 years ago, and
Yeah.
I, to this day, cannot ever get that out of my head.
I won't be able to from now on either. Ever.
No.
No.
It's yeah.
But that's unreasonableness, or maybe it's don't know how long this person's been in the role. Maybe didn't understand. Because to me, it's like I've heard something, but I can't remember the exact specificity. I can't say that word.
Exact specifications.
Yeah. Of that requirement, so I'm just going to make it up.
Yeah. And then argue when the driver goes, do you mean 3 points of contact?
And they're like, no, I'm sticking to my guns.
Hand, leg.
Tail.
Other appendage.
No, I'm not going to laugh again. Yeah, maybe you're kind of committed to your own cause then, and you're like, well, I'm going to die on this hill.
Yep, I'm just going to fight this one all the way up.
Yeah, and just hope for the best that people comply, but you can't comply. It's like actually impossible. That's like a riddle that no one will be able to solve.
It really is. It really is.
Unless you maybe like face as well.
What does that hold on to?
But I
like
just mean
holding on with your teeth.
But I mean,
it's just these little white bars down the
contact of some description.
Now I'm imagining all of the dental problems that would come with that.
Yes. Gosh.
So not a choice you would have gone with.
No, not die on the hill of 4 points of contact.
And you can't unstrap your load.
I mean, you've really backed yourself into a really weird corner. But everyone's in a weird corner, actually. It's not even just the safety officer.
Yeah, but the thing is that they then went with the complete 180 in the other direction, where they've just gone, but you can go outside and potentially do a lot of damage by unstrapping the load and driving it back in. You just can't do it here.
Yeah, we're okay with that.
Yeah. What are you going to do? Chase 200 kilo, 12 meter steel piping down the highway?
Maybe they were bored that day. They needed like a little something to kind of break up the day.
Not where I would have gone with my boredom.
Me neither.
I would have been like, okay.
Here's a fun game.
Yeah.
Round up all the 12-meter drill bits.
And make sure none of them are damaged and can't do their job anymore.
Yeah, you're probably going to need a lot of people to lift said items.
So you'd have to get a road registered forklift out there to help pick them up.
And then there'd be no road registered forklifts on site for some unknown reason.
Well, I think that most of the ones in the area were either belonging to farmers or belonging to the transport companies working in the area. So you'd have to then tell them that they're not allowed their 4 points of contact. Because I don't think that the farmers are going to be driving their road registered forklift down to help you get their 12-meter drill rod out of their field without quite a few words to the contrary.
No. What do you say?
It's mind-boggling, isn't it?
What do you say? What do you do?
That's the sort of thing that you deal with. The sheer madness of what happens in transport. People forget that there's so many things that we've had to do. I've had to explain to people that no airline will take 12-meter pieces of piping from one side of the country to the other because it's heavy. They can't load as much. They can't. Some of them are too long to be fitting into the type of planes that are going into those areas.
Yeah.
It's heavy, so they can't fit as much cargo in otherwise.
Yeah. So
you wouldn't just be paying for your piece of freight. You would be paying for all the pieces of freight that they can no longer fit in.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah. And then you have that whole issue of the fact that if it's coming out of somewhere like WA to Queensland, it has to, because it's a drill rod, it's been in the ground, it has to go through quarantine inspection and biosecurity because there's very different flora and fauna on that side of the country to this side of the country.
Yeah.
It's like anything coming in and out of Tasmania has the same processes.
Yeah.
Because it's protected flora and fauna.
Yeah.
So, and there's species down there that simply don't exist up here.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So all of that has to be adhered to, but trying to explain this to people is just headache inducing. I don't know what to say.
People think there's like an endless amount of trucks, even to focus on trucks.
No, they really do, because I have had people look at the company websites of companies I've worked at, seen the beautiful fleet photo that has been staged on a day where it has been purposefully put together. The trucks have all been washed. They've been parked up for like 20 minutes and the photographer's come in, taken 17 photos and gone, I think we've got the shot.
Yeah.
And then they've all gone back to work.
Yeah.
And they've gone, can I choose the truck that picks it up? No. No.
I feel like you have major trauma from this particular moment. You're just getting a lot of trauma vibes from you around this particular item that you're talking about.
Maybe.
Because, I think, that click and collect, I know that phrase is sort of said, you go to the store and you click it and collect it within like 2 hours or whatever it is. But the speediness
but this was happening long before that.
Yeah, but the expectation of speed, and I've clicked the thing, I've added to the cart, I want it now. And now is like 5 seconds after you've paid for the item. And it's like, X amount of days to get it to you, depending on where you are, if you're metro or rural or everywhere in between.
There's the reason that there is still so many varied ways of sending things. Like the shipping lines didn't go extinct with the invention of the air freighter.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
The airlines, the shipping lines, and the road networks all work in conjunction because everything has its limitations.
Mm-hmm.
So things that can't be shipped on a plane because they're too heavy or too bulky or whatever are shipped by a vessel, right? Mm-hmm. over the ocean.
Mm-hmm.
And then, but that means that it takes longer. And people forget that too. Like they're not going over the waves. So they have to go through them.
Yeah.
We'll go back to a safety side. loading of the trucks.
Yeah.
Of the vehicles.
Yeah.
Loading of the shipping containers and things. There is a level of skill to it, especially depending on the type of freight and the type of trailer, right? Because some trailers are different, and as much as one of my current colleagues likes to argue with, a drop deck is not a gooseneck. A gooseneck trailer is not a drop deck trailer unless it is a drop deck trailer and has a gooseneck attachment.
I didn't even know that existed till I met you. Did not know that was a thing. And sidebar, digging into my memory, dog chains, dog leads, dog something.
Dog chains.
Yeah. Yes. I didn't know that was a thing either.
Dog and chains.
You taught me that. Yeah, because I remember you calling up a company about that and they didn't know what they were.
Yeah.
And it was quite concerning that they didn't know what that was.
It was, because they were one of the big companies. But I mean, it wasn't the company itself that didn't know what they were. It was the girl on the phone who obviously hadn't been there for that long. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that was moving reels. We were moving big reels of electrical cable, and they were being picked up from down south, and they were to come up to Brisbane to be loaded onto a ship to travel internationally.
Yep.
And one of the requirements that the site had, that was a health and safety requirement, was that the truck had to be a flat deck, so flat open truck.
Yeah.
And the reels had to be secured with dog and chains.
Yeah.
Which is a special chain and tension method.
So hang on, it's dog and chains, not dog chains. Whoopsie. The listeners playing at home. I knew it had something dog in it. I just didn't quite.
Dog and chain
okay.
downs.
Yep,
so
I've
it's
seen
like
those before.
Yeah. A lot of people will have seen them without realizing what they are. So it's I don't know if I can insert an image to this. I don't know if I'm that tech savvy, but if I can, I'll try and put something about here-ish, maybe. But essentially, it's like a spike pin, and then it's got the two hook points that the chains hook into, and then it can be tensioned in so that they sit at the right, obviously the right sort of hold for whatever they're pulling. So I had a particular company that I was trying to book in the movement with, because at the time I was working as a logistics coordinator.
Yeah.
And when I spoke to her and said, the company that you're collecting from has the requirement that the driver has dog and chains, she went, why would the driver need a dog? And I'm like, like not a woof woof dog.
I would have loved to have been, I know I'm hearing a relay of it, but just love to have been a fly on the wall when you're actually having this conversation.
I don't think you would have. I'm fairly certain that potentially one of our viewers will remember what I was like when I was having this conversation, because she was sitting opposite me.
Oh,
doing the same role. One of our few potential listeners.
Good.
She was sitting opposite me doing the same role, and I think she heard my soul leave my body. I'm just sitting there with my head on my desk going, not a dog, dog and chains.
Not dog woof woof. Not dog woof woof.
I had to ask for her supervisor. Like, I'm not that person. I don't want to ask for your supervisor, but I had to ask for the supervisor and be like,
but in this case,
this is what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
This is the site requirements.
Why
does she keep asking me about dogs?
Help me, help you, help me.
Does she understand that this is a restraint method for a load? And he's like, we will do some more training.
We will do something.
Yes.
To rectify this.
It is something that I fully understand it. If you're not in the industry, if you're not dealing with it, you're not going to understand that that's something that is involved. You're not going to know all the lingo. But I mean, it took me years to learn what
everything
I know now. Like,
no one can know everything about their role. It's not possible.
But especially if you're working with companies that have overseas branches.
Yes,
because
definitely.
They're going to use a different lingo in a different country as well. So, you think about Australia talks about trucks and semis and B-doubles and road trains, whereas in England they'll call them like lorries.
Yeah.
Lorries are what they call lorikeets in Singapore.
Yeah.
So you're never going to be able to know everything.
No. I mean, you know the bare bones and you build on that, but I
Yeah.
think it comes with experience and talking with other people in the same area as you, bouncing ideas off or asking questions about stuff you don't know about or haven't come across. Because, especially if you change, industry, you'll definitely get different codes of conduct and laws and whatnot, and even changing depending on what you're doing too, whether it's a private company,
or a government
agency, or a global compared to a small privately owned. Like there's so many,
there's all different levels of it.
Different levels, and you're going to have different lingo.
Yeah,
even about just basic stuff.
Even within transport itself, you have companies that are specialized into certain types of loads.
Yeah.
And then you have companies that are more generalized.
Yeah.
So like a furniture removalist will have different equipment on board to a general carrier.
Yeah.
Who will have different equipment on board to a flooring carrier, to a grocery carrier. Like you see the refrigerator trucks running around town doing the food deliveries and things. Like they'll be delivering into Woolworths or out of the markets or whatever. What a lot of people don't know about those ones is that, yes, the temperature in the truck should be stable.
Yeah. The
van will be running, and some of them can be quite noisy, but the van will be running to keep that trailer at the right temperature. They can actually partition the back in certain ways to allow one end to be much cooler than the other end, but keep the temperature stable throughout.
Yes.
And the drivers have to actually log the temperature of the pallet every time they open the doors.
Yeah.
To make sure that everything is actually staying within safe parameters. So when you go to the shops and you buy your Freddo cake, it has been kept at a stable temperature the whole way through. Which I have seen Freddo cakes come out of containers when the temperature has been dropped. We had the company I was working for at the time was doing food movements. We had refrigerated containers on rail, and the tracks flooded.
Oh no.
So the rail came to a stop. Container ran out of fuel.
Yep.
Which means that the engine shuts down, the refrigeration shuts off. It was disgusting.
Yeah.
You open it and there's just a flood of Freddo cake soup. Not good soup. Not good soup. It just...
It was dog food, I'm sure.
I think it might have been worse.
Oh, wow.
I mean, it's a milk product that's been locked in a hot container on the rail for days. I think it was a little bit worse.
Yeah, for sure.
But, no. So that's one thing. We were all prepared for that to be liquid when it opened. We knew it had been too warm.
Oh, God. Yeah.
But you're just as prepared as you are. You're not prepared for that.
Your nose isn't.
Your
and
nose
your
is
eyes
not prepared.
isn't.
No, your mouth. Because you're sitting there going, I think, load restraint, coupling the trailers, all of that sort of stuff, it's all very important into the safety of the drivers, but even the driver and the loader behaviour is a big thing that's part of the being safe on board the trucks, because we've drivers behaving badly before or after movement of a vehicle can lead to a lot of dangerous situations, and it's the same with the loaders. I mean, you get stories about drivers behaving badly constantly, and you see it on the roads where I think the biggest ones that are bad for it that I've noticed are often like the earth movers, the quarry haulers, and I think a lot of that is how they're paid.
Ah, okay.
I think it often comes back to that, because they're not. I don't know if it's still the case, but I know I don't notice as much of that behavior anymore. It may just be that I take a different route to work, and so I'm just not on the same roads as they are.
Yeah.
But I used to travel a way to work that took me like right past where the quarry entry and exits were, and they were constantly running red lights, constantly just barreled through that intersection, and it was like, dude, you're not just going to kill you, you're going to kill everyone here.
Yeah.
But at the time, they were being paid per load. So if they only did 3 loads that day, they only got paid for 3 loads.
Yeah.
So they were running as many loads as they could in as short a time as they could. So I don't want to know how many laws those people were like braking.
Wow.
But that responsibility for that behaviour is, yes, majority on the driver, because you should be following the road laws.
Yeah.
But there is an amount of that goes back to the people that they're employed by. If you were going to pay per load, there needs to be a minimum that they're going to get paid, so that they are not feeling pressured into running through intersections or not stopping at give way signs or stop signs or just breaking the speed limit and all of that sort of stuff. Those trucks are limited to a certain speed, but that doesn't mean that they can't cheat the system, because you go down the wrong hill with that weight on your back and you are definitely going faster than that speed limit is supposed to be capable of. So I think that the quarries potentially that are paying these drivers sort of need to be able to have some level of responsibility on that one.
Definitely.
You have drivers that are paid by kilometre, and you have drivers that are paid by hour. Generally, drivers that are paid by kilometre are the long-haul drivers that do your biggest runs, sort of between the major cities or out to the more rural areas. And then obviously it's the more localised drivers that do the run around town that get paid per hour. Oh,
okay. Oh, interesting.
Because they're the ones that start at a certain time in the morning and finish at a certain time at night, and only really get held up by the local traffic. So those are their pay systems, and they all come with their ups and downs.
Pros and cons.
Yeah. I mean, you've got the drivers that like to be a little bit more relaxed about being around town, which I don't really have too much of an issue with, but they know they're getting paid for the day, so they're not too worried about it.
Yeah.
And then you got the drivers that are like, I need to go now because I'm being paid by the kilometre, and the longer you keep me here, the less I'm getting paid.
Yeah.
So you've two sides of a stick.
Yeah, for sure. Just going back, I'm trying to get my head around it. Just going back. Did you say more rural areas or mongrel areas?
More rural areas. What?
Just clarifying for our listeners at home.
I want to repeat. I want to repeat. Haul drivers that do your biggest runs, sort of between the major cities or out to the more rural areas.
I really thought it was a fine line between more rural or mongrel areas.
My apologies if I stumbled, but I'm fairly certain I said more rural.
Another classic Amy miss here.
I'm going back and I'm editing that to have a replay.
Because I just let it sink in for a little bit, and then I'm going to double check. Because I thought, what's a mongrel area?
Oh my god.
Another classic Amy miss here.
We've had a few.
Yeah. Well, I guess incidents, that you've seen even when we've worked together, taking exit gates out.
I think that happened just before I started. But yes, or I think the big one that happened just after we first started working together was the driver who, because the exit gate was out and we couldn't close it properly, he drove in the exit gate and so was travelling in the wrong direction of traffic despite the giant no entry sign.
Yes, and things coming towards said driver.
And then one of the other drivers had to get, because he'd come around the corner at the back of the warehouse and come face to face with another prime mover.
Yeah.
And then couldn't back himself around that corner and down the driveway. So one of the other drivers had to get in his truck and back him out himself.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yes, we've had some fun instances. I've had a lot of drivers that don't understand, keep to this side of the exclusion zone. They park on the exclusion zone.
Maybe they think they're all-encompassing. So if you're on the exclusion zone, like your truck and you are to be excluded.
But if we wanted to exclude you, I just wouldn't let you in the yard.
Yeah, true. Well, for that then, when they don't want to, being a site that does food grade stuff, they don't always want to wear, we call them sperm suits.
It depends on the colour of the suit. Sometimes they're white, in which case they are then definitely a sperm suit.
Yes.
And sometimes they're the blue man suit.
The blue man suit. Yes.
They're very blue.
Coveralls. just to have longs on. So yeah.
Site requirement is ankle to wrist clothing.
Yeah. But there's been so many heated discussions
Oh.
about.
I mean, you did have a great story about that. I was unfortunately away sick. I don't think it would have escalated to the point that it did that you were telling me about, but wow.
Coveralls flailing in the air. You will.
F words thrown, a few bombs dropped.
If you even so much as come back here and not have that on, I will throw you out myself. I will do this. I will do that. Yeah. And that was to the truck driver. So I was there to keep the person in check, but I think it
went past that point.
It went past check about 10 minutes into the yelling. But saying that, that truck driver never did that again. He, I think to this day, he still puts it on before he even comes to site.
I was going to say, he's the one who parks out on the road and puts it on.
See, I'm wearing it. If
you told me I wasn't allowed to come into site without it. I'm putting it on in the street, man.
Yeah. But the arguments and but it's too hot. I don't.
Oh, they all love that one. It's too hot. It's a stupid requirement. The thing is that it's a stupid requirement in your eyes until something happens. And it's when something happens that they then turn around and go, well, why didn't you tell me this was a requirement? Why didn't you make me do it?
Yeah.
Like, hang on. You were told you had to do it.
Yeah.
You were told it was a requirement of the site. It really does boggle my mind how often... I don't even think that it's like necessarily the transport themselves. Sometimes I think it's just the customer who's booking in the transport for collection that forgets to pass on those details.
Definitely.
It just says, oh yeah, you're going here to get this for me. But then they don't like pass on the whole thing that says your driver will be turned away if they don't have this number to quote for collection reference, because how else are we going to know who that belongs to?
Yeah.
And are wearing this and complying with that.
Yeah.
And then they get there and they're blindsided by it. They're like, I'm just the driver.
And they're
shorts.
And
they're very short shorts. Why?
Sometimes a lot of leg. There's just a lot of leg sometimes.
There's nothing else. It's just
all leg. A lot of skin.
That I didn't need to see, thank you. Climbing in and out of those trucks. But the other one, the one that actually quite frequent, like quite recently, and it's not the first time I've actually sort of requested help from the yard boys with this particular driver, because he seems adamant in not listening to me, and I have now made it clear to him that one more strike, buddy, you're out. You're not coming back to my yard. That's it.
Yeah.
He had this big thing about he brings in containers, and he was opening the doors of the containers, but he was opening them on the road and driving them in. Because he likes to park very nice and tight up against the side. And I'm like, I have issues with this in more than one way.
Yeah. You
can't secure that container door. And so my product could be damaged because it could swing.
Yep.
The product inside the container could be damaged because it could fall out because it's not secured because you've opened the freaking doors. You shouldn't be doing that on the road because then the vehicle is in movement, which could also allow it to fall out because you've opened the doors.
Mm-hmm.
And then he argues at me over the induction sign-in because he doesn't know how to use a computer.
I can't even with inductions. I can't. But I have a card. Yeah, but it's not working at the moment, so I just need you to fill out a paper copy. Yes, but I've got a card. Mm-hmm. I hear what you're saying, but the card won't do anything because the particular thing that needs to scan the
particular
card
thing that, should there be an emergency, will tell me who's on site and where.
It's not working. So the card doesn't matter. Please just... Anyway, that's a bugbear of mine.
Oh, good God. Not one that you need to worry about so much anymore. No,
it's fine. But yeah, even just thinking about another incident with one of our drivers leaving curtains open on the motorway and going through tunnels.
Yes. That particular driver did apologise for that, and then thoroughly chastised himself. There was very little that we really needed to do on that one. He felt mortified when he realised what he'd done. But yes. There's you should always be double checking your truck and your trailer. Not just the outer curtains and such have been properly restrained, but the load itself. Like I'm baffled when I have drivers come in and they're like, I don't know what I've got on board. How do you not know what you've got on board.
Yeah.
You are responsible for that load. Under the chain of responsibility, you are responsible for that load when you are in control of that vehicle.
Yes.
You need to know what is on board your truck.
Yeah.
Like, should there be an incident, you need to be able to advise the responders that you're A, not carrying dangerous goods, B, are carrying dangerous goods, and C, is there something on there that's extremely flammable either way that could cause this to become a, fireball? Or suppress the fire itself.
Yeah.
Like, it boggles my mind how little care people take. And then I have drivers that are like, oh, do I restrain here? Or do I have to go out on the road and do it? You restrain your truck before you move it anywhere, buddy. Like, I've had that question at multiple work sites.
Yeah.
And every time they ask me that, I'm like, how long have you been driving for?
I wonder whether some people, say in either your role or like the site or plant manager or, the top person for that site goes, oh, don't worry about it. Just get out. Like, let's get moving. We haven't got enough time. Get out into the street and do it. Like,
but you have to do it anyway.
Some people are laxed.
Yeah, but you have to do it anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
And B, wouldn't it take more time, because then you've got to get in the truck, start the truck up, move the truck out of the way, and then you've got to get out of the truck and start pulling everything out and that. Just wherever you've been loaded, strap it down. Yeah. Secure the load wherever you are before you get back in the truck.
Because, people...
And secure it properly. You don't leave freaking straps flying in the face of the car next to you.
Good God. Yes. Please stop doing that. Even, the humble ute that we know and love.
Your favourite from our previous episode with the...
Utes.
You would have preferred a ute to show up rather than that convertible.
Yeah. Yes. But strapping of ladders. The amount of ladders that are on the M1 at any given time from a ute not strapping a ladder down is frightening.
Yeah, and I don't understand that.
Because you
have to counter tie them, or you have to have you specialise, like the way that you do your jockey straps to make sure that it's not going to go anywhere. But surely, as the person who owns that ladder, you don't want to have to go and buy another one because you don't know where you lost it on the highway.
Yeah, and then it impedes not just that lane, but everyone, because then it becomes like a dangerous tactic to avoid. So people freak out because you don't see it. You might get a little blast on one of the signs.
If someone's reported it.
Yeah, if someone's reported it, a ladder or an obstruction on the highway. But generally, you're just going along and then,
there it is.
There's a ladder and you're trying to avoid it. But then, and you trying to avoid it, you might clip someone else because you're trying to move out of the way. I've had a few things strike my car. I'm sure you have too.
I've lost one of my the weather protectors that go over the top of your car windows.
Yeah.
I lost the passenger side one when a chunk of concrete came off the back of a concrete truck.
Yep.
And just hit the side of my car, and luckily that was the only damage it did. But yeah, my entire weather protector was just ripped off the side of my car.
Wow. And that's the thing, if you don't strap down, you don't strap properly, or you don't strap at all, bad things happen. Bad things happen.
And that's not to say that there are certain trucks that have methods other than strapping that are required. Like you have the tipper trucks that have the hydraulics in the back, right? Now they tend to not need to strap down because they have the tarp that pulls over the top.
Yeah.
And that's all well and good. I do, however, remember having to travel through after one lost its hydraulics control and dumped chicken guts all over the motorway. Yeah,
I remember that too.
Still turns my stomach because it was in the middle of summer.
Yep.
And it stank. And they had to put a mixture of sand and sawdust down on the road to absorb all of the oil and grease from the chicken guts.
Yeah.
It was just foul.
Yeah.
Just absolutely feral.
And it's also an environmental disaster.
Luckily it wasn't near a waterway, but
chicken guts going into an ecosystem or down a drain or seeping into any sort of soil or anything, that's and the amount of tonnage that would have come out onto the road.
It was it would have been quite
clean up, and the smell that would have affected everybody, not just on the day but like throughout that cleanup and afterwards and everything. Oh man, layers upon layers of like hazards to everybody involved in surrounding areas.
Not to mention the traffic hazard of everyone being, because it happened, and I think happened on the Pacific Motorway near 8 Mile Plains, and at the time I think I was getting on near Kingsford Smith Drive, and it was already backed up past.
Wow. Wow. Yeah.
So it was like and I mean, it happened hours before I needed to get on. That's how long the cleanup took, because they had to shovel the chicken guts off they had to they had to fix the trailer and make sure that everything was sealed again and that the hydraulics had been repaired before he could move off. They then had to shovel up all of the gunk
and then sort of absorb,
fix the cars that had grease planed instead of aquaplaned, I guess. Because there were a few that had hit the pile of guts and oh, gross. But yeah, they'd had to actually close most of the lanes of that section of highway for a while to make sure that it was all cleaned up properly before they released it. And by the time I got on, it was just bonkers. Bumper to bumper for, I think it was a good 20 or so K.
Yeah, I remember hearing that. I wasn't in that, thank goodness.
It smelled feral. And I came through hours after it was cleaned up.
I'm so glad I didn't. I have been caught behind, it was probably a couple of years ago now, a fuel tanker lost control, and then fuel went over the whole 4 lanes near Yatla. And it's just like across the 4 lanes, the tanker, that would have been frightening for the truck driver. I don't know if someone can correct me or remember, but I don't know whether someone clipped or cut that person off. For that to have happened, because it wasn't good. And here's me finishing work at Yatla. Come on just to the exit to like the on-ramp, and we stand still, and I thought, we
were like that. It was the on-ramp at Kingsford Smith Drive on-ramp, and I was already at a stop, and I was like, it's taken me half an hour just to go from the bottom of the on-ramp to the top of the on-ramp. This is going to be hell. And
I mean, emergency crews are quick in that they're quick to all these events, but it just takes so long. And fuel being on the motorway, like everywhere, and checking the guy's okay, and he needed an ambulance and the police, and then finally one lane opened up. And I'm sure that's what sort of happened once you got on the highway and everything. But the amount of sawdust and the amount of just cleanup that was required for that one tanker that lost all its load in that particular thing, and the risk of fire.
Which is why they would have closed the lanes to get as much cleaned up as possible. Because you have the cars going over it, and one wrong spark from a backfire.
So I think that was 6 hours, almost a whole shift. Another shift, just waiting. And I mean, I was winging
that
it.
Time you got stuck in the car park? They couldn't fix the boom gate.
What is that about? Anyway, but like I was winging it that day with fuel too myself. Like I thought, oh no, I've got a 20-minute drive, not far from home. I'll fuel up when I get home. And I just keep looking at the time, and then looking at the E, and then looking at the time, and then looking at the. I made it home, but just it was. I thought there's nowhere to go. I can't even turn off. I can't get out of this. I'm in the wait. But the amount of cleanup and the amount of aftermath that goes with an event like that is huge.
Oh yeah.
Not just for the emergency crews, but for the company, the truck driver, the families, everyone affected with traffic, the whole thing. Yeah, and restraining loads is one of the big things that you get a lot of focus on in our industry. Unrestrained loads is like a leading cause of damage to not just other vehicles, but to the vehicles of the transport company themselves. Things flopping around inside the trailers can cause all sorts of issues. It can cause problems like in refrigerated trailers. It can cause problems to the conduiting inside. It can cause problems to the venting, all sorts of stuff. But then you have lost loads. Like you drive highways and you see shit on the side of the road and you're like, where'd that come from?
Well, it could be someone dumping shit. It could also be someone who's just not restrained their load properly.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter the size of the vehicle. Unrestrained loads in your car, in your little 2-seater hatchback,
your convertible,
all the way up to the massive heavy hauler, specialized built trailers is always going to be a problem.
Yeah.
But moving on from those sort of things, we take a little bit of a new route.
It's had no accidents. Or incidents.
I think with like the driver behavior and the forky behavior and things on site, if you have a driver and a forky who are butting heads while they're trying to load or unload a truck, you're going to have a lot of problems trying to get that done safely.
Yes.
And I think at the end of the day, in those sort of cases, there are certain companies, like a lot of the steel companies, have a no driver in vehicle policy. In those particular companies, I know there's a lot of steel companies that actually load via overhead crane, which is where that policy came from, is that they didn't want the driver in the vehicle in case the crane dropped the load unexpectedly, in thereby crushing whoever was below it. And so while the crane was in operation, the driver had to be out of the cab and on the upper walkway, which, you know, a lot of them are like, oh, but then I've got to go all the way down and it takes forever to strap down when I'm done. So that's the exclusion zone. That's where you need to go. So over there, go wait. So there's a lot of them these days that are just like, no drivers near the load. No, like while the forklift is in operation, no drivers near the truck. You can come in when the forklift's not there and you can start strapping down. But as soon as the forklift is on the return, get lost. Get back to your driver wait zone. What do they call them? Driver wait zones, safe zones, driver zones. Like they've got all sorts of different names for them these days. But
at the end of the day, it's where they wait safe. Yeah.
They have to be away. It's not even, a lot of sites don't even have the 3-meter rule anymore. It's just a case of, like, they do, but it's for their workers. The driver of the vehicle must be in a specialized zone away from the truck. And then once the truck has dropped its load, like the forky has dropped the load onto the back of the truck and moves away, then the driver can come in and restrain it. But they don't want him.
No.
And it's an ongoing battle because the drivers, especially ones that are paid for the kilometre, don't want to wait for him. As soon as it's on board, they want to be strapping down so that they can move on. And so they'll be working on the A trailer while he's loading the B trailer or vice versa. And it's like, you're not allowed to be there. You need to, well, I've got to get on the road. I understand, but you're not allowed to be there.
Yes.
And so you just end up in a few more fights. It's funny.
See this blue suit?
Put it on. Oh my god, the amount of fighting that you get in this industry, though. Like I honestly, I think that's why I have become such a competitive person. I spend my entire time arguing with men that are twice my age and half my brain cells. No, I don't mean that. Just twice my age.
Here's looking at you, Jim, whoever you are. We'll bring Jim back in.
Look, that show had a really annoying Jim, okay?
I'm going to do this.
Because I've been talking for an hour.
And just say, well done. That was very informative.
Was it?
I think it was.
Well, if anyone has any questions or suggestions or...
What they want to hear more of
what,
or less
what you would like to hear next.
Oh, yeah, true. Next.
Give us some topics. Give
Dear
us some
listener.
stories. I would love to have a section of the show, like maybe the last 10 or 15 minutes or so.
Yeah.
Where we just like talk about people's stories.
Yeah, like what they've sent in.
Like what they've sent in.
Yes,
so
I'd love that too.
We would love to do that. So don't forget to follow us on our Instagram.
Yes.
We have listed in the notes our Instagram handle, and we have also listed in our email.
Yes.
So don't forget to chuck us a follow on Instagram. We're not on any other social media at this stage, except we are on YouTube.
Yes, we are.
If you're watching the video version, you already know that.
Yeah. If you're looking at us, that's where you're seeing us. It'd be really weird if you saw us somewhere else. That'd be weird. I think that's a bit stalkery.
Except maybe Instagram.
Yeah, but like, you know what I'm saying. But yes, if you're a more visual person like me, I do like watching YouTube podcasts. Hearing them as well in the car and whatever. But yes, do follow us. We'll keep you updated. And for our dear listeners that have been onto us about more episodes,
Troy,
here's
Christy,
more
Kylie.
episodes. I love
Apparently, we had more than one.
Yes, so please enjoy and just tell us what you want to hear more about.
We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to keep going.
And tell us some of your scary near misses, scary incidents.
Hey, look, if you've been around trucks, if you're working in the industry, tell us about some of those terrifying load restraint stories that you've all got.
Yes. Or truck versus car, sorts of things.
I would love to hear some more forklift stories.
Forklifts, yes, that's
They're
again,
terrifying. They're terrifying. Maybe next episode I'll tell you how one nearly killed me.
Ooh, that's a cliffhanger thing.
Ooh.
Like you're setting
I want
it
to see
up.
how you nearly died.
She's still alive. This is Tasha. She's here with me, not in ghost form.
That would be cool.
That would be cool, wouldn't it? A whole nother paranormal safety logistics podcast.
That's a whole different podcast.
Yeah. So with that, thanks for listening.
And we will see you, and, well, you will hear us next time.
You'll see us. We won't see you.
Well, we might in the comments.
Yes, but we won't actually visually see them. In the us.
All right, party people.
All right. Well, till next time.
Bye,
Thanks for
everyone.
listening. Bye.